Well, hey, everybody, it's Pastor Barton. Grateful you joining me today and want you to come on in. Join me today as we're going to be talking wisdom in the pulpit. And I know it's going to be a blessing to you as you come in. Please do me a favor and share it with someone as you come in today because I believe that this will bless you. I believe it's going to be important, especially for those that are in ministry, those that are doing ministry, those that are getting started in ministry. One of the things that I believe we must exemplify, one of the things we must do is have wisdom in the pulpit. And so, as you're joining me today, by all means, share it with someone. Just hit the share so we can share today as we deal with wisdom in the pulpit. It's going to be a blessing, and I know it's going to bless those of you. One of the things that I think as we get started today, let's really take a moment to look at some things as we talk about wisdom in the pulpit, as we talk about dealing with wisdom in the pulpit. Many months ago, I started doing videos about wisdom in the pulpit that we may minister to those from the pulpit. And I believe it's very important for us to understand that we must have wisdom in the pulpit. And I've done a lot of videos as it relates to pulpit matters and how we do things from the pulpit and in the pulpit over these 43 years of ministering full-time, 40 years of ministering full-time in ministry, 43 years in ministry. I must admit to you, I've seen and done some things that I shouldn't have done in the pulpit, some things possibly I shouldn't have said from the pulpit or whatever. And so these are the days that we come about not just to talk about correcting some things, but to share with how we use wisdom. Any man like wisdom, let him ask of God. We need to be able to do some things from the pulpit and to be able to share. Today I want to talk to you about, and for those of you that will be watching, those of you that will, you'll watch the live and also the replay. I want to share with you about the new pulpit, the new pulpit. And I know that most people would say, what are you talking about, Pastor Martin? You're talking about the new pulpit. What is the new pulpit? And what do you mean when you say it's open access? We have the new pulpit. What you're watching today, what you're watching right now, what you're watching on replay, what you're watching right now is the new pulpit. This right here, online, social media, seems to be the new pulpit. You remember years ago when you talked about the pulpit, you referenced being at church or you referenced being at maybe a conference or sitting on a stage at a local and a local place or right there, the physical place. You talked about the pulpit, so you were sitting there. And when we dealt with the pulpit during that time, either you were one that you knew you had where you could sit there or you were invited up. I remember when I was first started preaching my late pastor, when I first got saved, I was not really a minister. I was just getting into ministry, but there were those that on Sunday morning, he would come. The pulpit wasn't a big place at that time where we were at our church, but he would go around and he would select those that he wanted to be in the pulpit that particular day. And so you would get to the pulpit. There are times now when you go to places, if you don't have maybe a title or a position or in a certain status, you don't sit in the pulpit. Matter of fact, in many cases, they don't even sit people in the pulpit anymore. Even the senior pastors and others don't sit in the pulpit. So that's not an issue when it comes to the pulpit. But now understand that when we are dealing with this, when we deal with the pulpit, the new pulpit is what you're watching right now, which is basically social media or what we're doing. This could be considered the new pulpit. If you look at YouTube, if you look at Facebook, most of the times you will see people on there, whether they're praying, whether they're having a prophetic something, or they're prophesying, or whatever they're doing, they basically call that the pulpit. And people, amazingly, people tune in. And you don't have to have credentials or whatever, don't have to have accountability. People just tune in simply because it is the new pulpit. This, what we're looking at, is the new pulpit of today. And so as we look at this and talk about the new pulpit, social media being on, where you can just sit in front of your phone, your iPad, your camera, and sit there. Don't, and this is not a slight, don't have to have any qualifications or anything or be accountable to anybody. You can just sit here and do what you do, and people will respond or people will follow. That's not to say you don't have an anointing for it. I'm just saying people will respond and people will follow. So it is the new pulpit. Social media is the new pulpit. And what we have to understand is when we talk about wisdom from the pulpit, since social media is the new pulpit and we're dealing with this new pulpit, we have to understand that social media is the new pulpit of today. People are sitting and they are doing things, whether it's at home or whatever. It is a new pulpit. Now, here's the thing of the new pulpit: it is open access to the new pulpit. What do you mean open access? Anybody can access this new pulpit, no matter who they are. If they follow someone, if they don't follow anyone, they can access this new pulpit. All they've got to do is just, again, get a camera, get a cell phone, get whatever, and sit down and begin to talk. They go in live or schedule a live. Somebody's going to follow, somebody's going to listen. So it has become the new pulpit with open access. And we have seen people that have gotten on here, and when they come to the pulpit, use no wisdom, even though this would be considered the new pulpit. They use no wisdom with this pulpit. And so what they end up doing is they just sort of say whatever they want to say, do whatever they want to do, put out whatever they want to put out. And basically, you've got people that will agree, or no one can, I guess, hold them accountable many times of what they're doing, because they're saying, I'm doing it in the name of the Lord. And who are we to argue with anybody that say they're doing something in the name of the Lord, even though we may feel and know that what they're doing, they're not doing it in the name of the Lord, and that's not biblical as far as what they're doing. But it is the new pulpit. It is what we have to deal with it, and people have access to it. They not only have access through video, but they have access also through being able to make a post. You can do just as much with posting as much as you can do with video. So when we start talking about the new pulpit, we're talking about video, we're talking about posting, and there are some posts that can be very damaging. And I think the wisdom of this new pulpit and this open access that we must remember, and that is this, is that we believe and think that possibly that Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Periscope, or whatever it may be, we think that those platforms are platforms that are Christian platforms, but they're not. We have to remember when we start talking about wisdom in the pulpit, and as we're going to deal with this new pulpit, even with video or posting, with lives or whatever, we have to remember that Facebook is not a Christian platform, even though Christians are on it. We have to remember that YouTube is not a Christian platform, even though Christians utilize it. We have to remember Twitter. We have to remember that Periscope and all of these are not Christian platforms. And even though Christians are on it, they're not Christian platforms, because understand wisdom from the pulpit with the things that are going on. If you were on Facebook and you were ministering on Facebook and you said something that they considered to be possibly a hate speech, then they could, by all means, tag you or flag your live, or flag your preaching, or flag whatever, because it is not a Christian platform. We need to remember that. So we still have to use wisdom when we come onto this platform, that this new pulpit. We have to use wisdom when we have access to it. And so we've got a lot of people that's got open access to this new pulpit. And when they have open access, they are sometimes hurting the efforts and hurting the the pushing forward of ministry in the body of Christ by the way they use it. So I'm saying that even though we're not in a physical pulpit, in many cases, this new pulpit with this open access goes further than just the local pulpit in a church. Because if you're in a local pulpit in the church and you're not streaming, you're not televising, you're not doing whatever, you're ministering basically to those persons that are right there in front of you. But when you sit in front of a camera like I'm doing, when you sit here with a mic in front of you, when you sit here and you go to broadcasting, understanding that you're broadcasting to people around the world, and I don't care how many live are looking at you at this moment, the thing you got to remember is this doesn't go away. Once I end this live here today, it will be posted that people can look at it for months and years down the line. So whatever I say today, if I don't use wisdom, it will always be out there unless I delete it. And if I don't delete it, then it's out there for people that can look at it a year. I've got posts that I put on here that people still watch, and they've been watching it for possibly a year, 2 years, 3 years. And so we have to understand that those things are, when you deal with that these things are out there. So dealing with this new pulpit and this open access that we have to it, we must use wisdom how we use social media, how we use our platforms, how we do the things we do. We must be careful and understand that I believe we should be accountable to how we use it and what we say from here. And so the wisdom of doing and dealing with this new pulpit and open access in this pulpit of today, this social media platform pulpit, when you're dealing with thousands, because understand that whoever I'm talking to today, you may not even be in Georgia. You may be in Texas. You may be in California. You may be somewhere in China for all I know. But if you're receiving this, then this has become my pulpit. And I still must use wisdom in this pulpit if I'm going to share and hope to reach and hope to encourage, hope to inspire, hope to help somebody. I still must use wisdom even in this setting of the new pulpit. And just because we have open access, and again, I want to drive that point that we have open access in this new pulpit, that people don't need credentials. They don't need a whole bunch of stuff. All they need is a cell phone, iPad, or a camera, or a mini cam, or a webcam, or whatever, and sit down and just go to talking. And whether they are biblically sound or not, that's, in many cases, that's not important, because what they are doing is they've got open access to this new pulpit. And so when someone that watches it that's not saved, now those of us that saved, we may understand what you're saying. But those that are not saved at all, when they see it, they don't know that a person that has open access to this new pulpit hasn't studied, or they haven't even probably been called. And I say that sometimes because it may be true. They haven't been called, but they've got access to this pulpit. And so they go out and they begin to push and they begin to do it and they begin to say stuff. And so a person that's not saved, when they see it, because this is not a Christian platform, it's not a Christian-based platform, Facebook or YouTube. And so when they hear someone say something or do something, what they begin to say to themselves is, sometimes they say, man, that's why I don't go to church. All church folk are crazy. They just do this. But understand that that's not everyone's pattern. That's not everyone's thought. But because of this open access to the new pulpit, which is social media, they can't, someone that's not saved, they can't discern between what is sound and what is unsound. All they know is there's somebody in the name of God talking. And so wisdom says that we must do even a better job when it comes to wisdom in the pulpit. We've got to do a better job even in dealing with this. I am responsible for the things I do on this new platform or this new pulpit. I am responsible for the things I say and the things I put out and the things I do. I am very responsible for those things. I have to take and be held accountable for the stuff I say, the stuff I post, the stuff I do. Because if I'm posting something that's crazy, it reflects back on the body of Christ, especially if it's something that's way off. And I won't get into that right now. But of course, all of us have seen some posts, and we sort of cringed at it because it makes the world think that we have some type of issue and we're in our own little world and we're not in the regular world. And so there's some things, for instance, there's some things that happen that are just natural things of nature, has nothing to do, a tornado coming through or a storm coming through or a, fires like in California. Now, someone would say, well, God is judging California. We can't really say that. Because if a fire came down my street and my house got burned down, then what would I say? That's the devil? Or would I say that God was judging me? So a lot of times, even the things we say, we got to be careful. We have to think before we speak. We have to look at and acknowledge some things before we speak, because this is, we start looking at it, this is the somewhat of the new pulpit, and we've got to still be accountable in what we do from here. And so I'm saying to those of you with wisdom in the pulpit today, let's learn and to be accountable for the things we say, the things we do. I know it's a new platform. Everyone's using it, but let's use wisdom even from this place of how we do what we do. Let's use some wisdom in the pulpit. Are there things that should be shared? Sure. Are there things that should not be shared? Absolutely. There are things that should be shared, and then there are things that should not be shared. And if those things that should not be shared, then we should not share them at all. We should leave them where they are, and that may be for another time or another setting to do those things when we're using wisdom in the pulpit. Well, I'm through. I pray and trust. Do me a favor. Share this with someone. Those of you that watching it later, I pray and trust that you will share it. And let's start using wisdom in the pulpit. This is the new pulpit. I know that maybe some of you may say, well, I don't agree with that, but it is. Everybody is preaching from here. They got a word from the Lord. They got a prophecy. They got everything. So it's the new pulpit. It's where people put their phones up and tape what you're doing. It is the new pulpit, and everyone has open access to it. But even with the open access, we must still use wisdom in the pulpit, that we may minister to those from the pulpit. Always ask yourself before you do it, am I helping or am I hurting? That's always the question to ask. Am I helping or am I hurting? Am I helping? What I'm about to say, what I'm about to do, am I really helping? Is it really bringing deliverance? Is it really bringing glory to Christ? Am I helping or am I hurting by something that I'm doing because I'm not using wisdom in how I do it? The Lord bless you and the Lord keep you. Thank you so much for joining me today. We'll be back next week. I'm going to be doing these every week. Wisdom in the pulpit. Let's talk about the things that I think we need to do and things that many of us, we share with each other about things that happen in the pulpit. Let's use wisdom as we minister to the world. The Lord bless you and the Lord keep you is my prayer. Again, thank you so much for joining me.